So my channel is sort of a combination of a lot of different mediums when it comes to entertainment. I usually talk about comics sometimes, I talk about movies a lot, with movie recommendations and my favorite movies of the year, and of course, the central piece of my channel is video games. I play mini games and I do Minecraft Let's Plays and other Let's Plays too, Assassin's Creed, all of that stuff. But sometimes it feels like I just don't talk about games that much. I mean, I talk about games when I play games, but I don't really spend a lot of time making reviews or anything anymore like I used to. So I wanted to make that change this year. I wanted to talk about all of the games I've played in the year. I usually don't play that many games, to be honest. I mean, I record games and stuff, but other than that, outside of that, I don't actually play that many games by myself. I play games with friends and everything too, but this year I also wanted to make that a change too. I wanted to make that one of my resolutions, is to just enjoy more art, which in this case came in the form of games. So I am here to talk about all of the games that I've played this year. This isn't just new games, but this also includes games that I've never played before. Mostly it's just me catching up on games I've never played before. So I'm going to walk through each one of them in pretty much chronological order. There's a franchise that I played this year that I did not play in chronological order. I didn't just play them back to back to back. But I started off the year with an amazing title called Gris. A new game that from the company that made Gris actually just came out called Niva. Really excited for that one. I haven't played it yet, haven't picked it up, but I am looking forward to it. But this one, such a stunning and beautiful experience. The artwork is just amazing. It's like playing a painting. It's just really quite beautiful. There's a lot of cool mechanics too throughout that spice it up, but really it's just sort of enjoying the story and sort of the feel of it all. It's got a lot of great vibes. So basically the theming of it is sort of this sense of grief and loss and working through that. I think it's really just such a powerful game in that regard. It's pretty simple when you boil it down to its basic points. You're just sort of walking around and doing a few puzzle things here and there and sort of experiencing some challenges throughout, but it's mostly just a story that you get to experience. It's more than just watching a movie and stuff. You actually get to actively partake in the story, which I think is really a powerful thing about games, and this one does perfectly. I will definitely never forget this game. I think it was just, like I said before, just so very powerful and moving and touching, and I think its presentation and its story just really hit you quite hard. But then I sort of made a 180 and played a completely different game. I finally played Grand Theft Auto 5. It's kind of embarrassing. This game has been out for over 10 years. It's been on every single console, even freaking probably in toilet stalls and stuff like that, and on Walkman and everything, on your iPod. You can play it freaking, I don't know, on the freaking satellite and up in space and stuff like that, on the freaking International Space Station, all that sort of stuff. It's been ported to high hell, man. But there's a good reason for that. Well, one, there's just not another GTA game out since then, but two, it is just such a great game. It's full of life and fun. The story is immaculate. I love it so much. It's very humorous, but it has some more emotional turns too. You really get to care for the characters as you go on. You get to know them and experience their lives and their sort of shortcomings and their triumphs and their tribulations and all of that. It just has such a fun presentation to it too. I'm very addicted to it. I've been playing it for so long. I even when I'm playing other games too, I sort of take breaks sometimes and hop on GTA just to drive around and do all sorts of random crap and stuff. It's got infinite replayability. I want to replay the story right now, even though I played for the story months ago, and it's 30 hours, but it just flies by so fast that you just can't help but enjoy it. It's not immune to its sort of faults too. There's some sort of tedium in some of the missions too. Sort of you're driving around all the time and stuff like that. So if you don't like the driving, then you're probably screwed. But I like the driving. I thought the driving was nice, and it's part of it's Grand Theft Auto. It's not Grand Theft Waco, I don't know, so there is that. But it really is just such a fun game and deserves its iconic reputation. I think also some of the things too about it are a little dated, the shooting is kind of dated and stuff. It's not too terrible. If you look back at the other GTA games, it's definitely an improvement over those, but it could use some brushing up, and I'm sure GTA 6 will really improve upon the systems that are already there, that I think it's only a matter of refining, but I think overall it still has a lot going for it there. Of course, there's a lot of fun to be had, not only in single player, driving around and doing random side quests and everything, freaks and geeks and stuff like that, finding collectibles, but there's also obviously online, which I've never played before, but maybe one day I'll check it out. I'm a big fan of single player games, and this one really just scratched an itch. It just has such a level of fun to it and stuff, and also deeper emotions too. There's definitely some more emotional moments and scenes that you can't help but feel for the characters, so I think it really just does a great job and makes not only just an iconic game, but iconic characters that I feel like gaming history will remember for a very long time. So Grand Theft Auto 5, really fun. What a great way to start the year, more or less. I started with Greece, but then I hopped to GTA, so that took me about a month to defeat, and it went by freaking fast. So a game that I had bought last year, but I never really like sunk a lot of time into. I think I played the first mission. I was like, okay, this is cool, and I didn't go back to it. Not because I hated it. I was just like, yeah, it's fun, but I guess I got distracted by other things, and I sort of fell to the wayside. But Jedi Survivor is amazing. Definitely even better than Fallen Order, which I think is already great as it is. Once again, these games are not immune to their faults. Definitely a little rough around the edges in places, which, you know, isn't that much of a problem. I never really experienced any sort of game-breaking mechanics or anything like that, so that's okay. We'll just keep that in mind. It does have its faults, but I think the things it does well really just blows past all those faults. The story, amazing, love the characters. It's a really cool continuation of where they leave off in Fallen Order. You get some surprising and emotional moments. You get some new cool characters. I love the addition of Bode. I think he was a great add-on there, and a lot of fun with his story. I really just love the course they took his story and Cal's story in this one. You know, Star Wars is kind of in a rough place at the moment. I think there's some great stuff. I think there's some weak stuff. But the truth be told, it just really isn't quite where it used to be. At the moment, you know, maybe there's hope for the future, but this game and Fallen Order, I think, are bright spots in that regard, that I think they are some of the best Star Wars content that we've got in a while, and they're just so fun to play, very satisfying. The combat is amazing. Love all of the jumping and stuff, the open world sort of elements to it. It's not necessarily like a big open world game, but you can sort of roam around planets and stuff like that at better leisure than I found Fallen Order, so I appreciate that it feels a lot easier to explore, for me at least, in this one than Fallen Order. Yeah, just a lot of fun stuff, really cool cosmetic additions and everything that you can upgrade you can upgrade Cal and stuff like that. You can choose what skill tree you want to go down and everything, and choose what skills you want. And the boss fights are quite fun too. Maybe not the most challenging. I think some of them definitely are a little harder, but overall it really is a fun game and has a lot of surprises packed into it that I'm really glad that I finally checked this one out. It is well worth it. It is quite amazing and probably one of my favorite games from last year. So next, I finally also checked out Mario Wonder. It has been a while since I've played a sort of, I guess, 2.5D Mario game. You know, New Super Mario Bros. Used to be the thing back in the day. I had that on the DS, I had it on the Wii, I played it with my cousins, it was so much fun, loved it. Then they kind of spammed it for a while. They kind of GTA 5'd it, if you will, which, you know, isn't necessarily a bad thing. Keeping this game that is great around for a while is fine, but sometimes it can get a little stale, and I think, unlike GTA 5, I think New Super Mario Bros. Got a little stale, unfortunately. I think the art style was good, but it wasn't the most colorful and bright and inspired. You know, the gameplay is fun too. I like the characters. I like that they changed up the roster for New Super Mario Bros. U and everything, and they poured that over with Deluxe and whatnot. So there's still a lot of fun to be had. But, you know, New Super Mario Bros. 2 and all that stuff, you know, is a little yeah, kind of been there, done that sort of situation. So they kind of took a step away from this. They reinvented the wheel with the 3D Land and World games, which I think are amazing. I never played 3D Land, but 3D World, fantastic. Such a great time. But now this sort of return to this sort of 2.5D Mario, I think now is the perfect time. It's been a while. I don't know. I feel like some people may have missed it. Like, we've seen a lot of great 3D Mario stuff recently, and sort of kind of a combination of that with 3D World and everything. But we haven't seen sort of a more classic Mario game in quite a while. So I think it was great to have this return, and it is, well, wonderful. It's such a bright, vibrant game, so full of life, unlike New Super Mario Bros. After a while, it's sort of like, yeah, it's a little dull sort of colors and stuff, but this is very bright and vibrant and so very creative. The Mario games, I think, one of the greatest things about them, they have so much stuff jam-packed in them. They could, like, take a few of those ideas they had and make an entire game based on that, but no, they're just like, that's cool, let's move on. They're sort of just really just love continuing to innovate. I think that's sort of a mentality Nintendo has just in general, and I think Mario really shows that. And yeah, there's so many unique sort of fun mechanics that only get used a few times throughout the game. A lot of different level variety and stuff like that, so it makes replaying that even more fun. You know, you get sort of collectibles and challenges and stuff. You get harder courses and easier courses and all courses in between. Some fun boss fights, you know, not like the most complicated Elden Ring type boss fights, but still fun. I think the new voice actors for Mario and Luigi, I think, did quite a great job. You know, I miss Charles Martinet, of course, but I think still quite fun performances there nevertheless, and really captured the energy and the spirit of those characters, so I don't mind one bit. Yeah, it really just is quite a fun Mario game. If you like Mario games, you like platformers, there you go. It's a great sort of quote-unquote 2.5D game there. So it is great to have you return to sort of a more classic Mario. Of course, 3D Mario is my all-time favorite. I love Odyssey. Love all the 3D Mario games. But this was, yeah, just a really fun game and quite well made and stuff, and deserving of all the accolades that it got. So, Super Mario Wonder, it is indeed wondrous. It deserves that name. So, in my catching up, I finally got around to playing a game series that I've sort of been interested in for a little bit. It's, you know, I didn't really know too much about it, but diving into it is like, wow, this is actually really cool. The Resident Evil games. So I will say I didn't play these all back to back. Some of these I did. I played Resident Evil 4, then I played 2 other games, and I went back to the other Resident Evil games until recently. But, yeah, so I played this in a very weird order. I started with 4 because 4 is the newest one, and I was like, this looks really cool. This one looks like was the one that was interesting to me the most. So I checked that out, and then I went back to 2, and I went to 3, and then I went to 7. So I may have skipped a few along the way, and this may not be the best way to play all of them, but I think 4 is a good introduction to the series. These are quite unique and fun and just amazing games I love. They're infused with horror, some of them more than others, some more action-based. Resident Evil 4 is definitely the most action-based out of the first set of 4. Yeah, I love the characters. I think Leon is amazing. I like Ashley. The setting is amazing too. This sort of like creepy medieval-esque town. It doesn't take place in medieval times, but it's very like sort of a dated, older sort of rural town. And yeah, just sort of very, very creepy with all the zombies and stuff and the outbreak and everything. And then you get the castle and you get the island too, which is really fun. I think the island is a very climactic finale, sort of a lot more action-based. Even more so, but the castle is also very creepy and cool too, so it's never really like a straight horror game where you're, I know it's never really like scared or anything like that, but it is very tense and intense, and there's some pretty challenging boss fights for it. I will say, probably the most challenging boss fights that I've played in any Resident Evil game so far, and the humor as well keeps it fun and lighthearted in places. I think Resident Evil is a great combination of horror and humor, and this game is no exception. Leon Kennedy is a silly guy, but he's also a really cool guy too. He's got some cool moments where he does some freaking crazy flips and he like shoots some goddamn zombies and he just goes nuts with it. So it's quite the fun game, and a game that I missed. I'd replay it in an instant. I think it's just so much fun. I don't think there's really any particular spot I was like, this is alright. I thought it was all just maintain this sort of a consistency and quality, and of course the modernized graphics are quite stunning too. It looks amazing. Probably one of the best looking games that came out last year. So yeah, Resident Evil 4 is amazing. And I looped around to Resident Evil 2, which is also great. I've only played the remakes of these games, so I can't speak on the originals. But it's a cool sort of modernization of it. Resident Evil 2 is much more of the classic sort of survival horror rather than action horror like Resident Evil 4, where you cannot... You probably cannot kill all the zombies in Resident Evil 2. You probably could, but it's not exactly what the game was meant to do. You're not supposed to kill all the zombies. You're supposed to find clever ways to move around and stuff and use your supplies sparingly as possible. Eventually it sort of like transforms into a little bit more of an action game, but not quite in the same extent that later Resident Evil 3 does. But 2 is great as well, sort of taking place in Raccoon City in this police department. Then it sort of expands out from there too and goes into this like house and like this sort of creepy underground lab and everything. So and also very cool too. So in Resident Evil 4, you mostly focus on playing as Leon. There's a few other moments where you get to play as other characters too, but it's mostly just Leon. I think it's just Ashley that you get to play as once, but yeah, that's also a great segment too, the Ashley segment in Resident Evil 4. Amazing, but in 2 you get to decide between playing either as Leon, once again, for the first time actually, not once again, or you get to play as Claire, working for her brother Chris from the first Resident Evil game. So quite fun. Love the enemies. Mr. X is fantastic. He's sort of an ever-looming presence. You hear his footsteps getting closer and closer off in the distance, and it really sort of adds to the tension of the game. I think the settings are great. I think the boss fights are fun too. Not as hard as Resident Evil 4, but still present a challenge. The overall presentation is amazing. It looks great. The remakes are fantastic, I will say once again. Maybe some content has been changed, especially in Resident Evil 3. There's some missing stuff there. But I think overall the remakes are quite amazing. I love them. Looking forward to the next one. I'm now a Resident Evil fan because of these games. I think they're amazing. And then Resident Evil 3, which sort of like is a cool sort of sequel, prequel to 2. It takes place in Raccoon City once again, but it takes place before the events of 2 and then after the events of 2, which is really cool. I love that idea. You get to play as Jill Valentine returning from Resident Evil 1, and yeah, you get to sort of try to figure out what's going on here, try to find a cure for this virus and everything. Very much more action-based than 2. Not quite as action-based as 3. It sort of still has some of those elements of 2, where it's survival horror and everything. But yeah, it's definitely a little more action-based, and you get to have some fun shootouts and stuff like that, and get to fight instead of Mr. X, you get to fight a nemesis. What I will say is definitely a harder challenge than Mr. X, but is not quite as creepy and as looming as Mr. X, but still quite good. I like Nemesis. I think he was a cool addition to the game. A lot of great characters too. I like Carlos and everything. The story is great. I like the setting too, especially the beginning part where you get to play in Raccoon City on the ground, not just in the police departments, but also just like in the streets, which I think is just such a cool aesthetic and really creepy too. Some great creepy moments as well. Boss fights are fun too. Once again, not as hard as 4, but still quite good. Missing segments too. There's like the clock tower or whatever, which I didn't mind because I've never played the original, but it would have been cool to have seen those segments brought to life. So I think it is probably the weakest of the Resident Evil games that I've played, but I still loved it, and I think it was a great time and very fun too. So it's very much a game that I would recommend too. I think 2 and 3 are great. I think 4 is my favorite, but I also played 7, which is by far one of the creepiest, most terrifying games I've played in my entire life. At the beginning, I did not want to play it. I was playing through it, and I was like, this is actually, like, really scary and actually really getting to me. I wasn't, like, in my bed, like, oh, God, he's gonna get me, man, Father Baker's gonna get me and stuff. No, but it just sort of fills you with a sense of dread. Like, you don't want to do this. It's like a gross metaphor here, but, like, you get a clogged toilet, and the only way to fix it is to put your hand in it. You don't want to do it because it's disgusting, but you have to. So it sort of, like, gives you that feel for a while. Then it's sort of, like, it still keeps its horror vibes to it. It doesn't, like, quite get as oppressive as the first sort of segments, the first location, but I think the first location is just immaculate. It's just very creepy. It's got a lot of cool vibes. Very Evil Dead meets Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It wears its inspirations on its sleeve, but I think that's great. I think it really just does such a great job. Really leaves a massive imprint on you. The story itself is very cool, very twisty-turny, once again, very mysterious. Very un-Resident Evil-y, but also very Resident Evil too. In some ways, it's a lot different because it is in first person, the first Resident Evil game to be in first person. It really dives deep into the horror. The Resident Evil games always sort of have horror. Mostly, I think 5 and 6 are much more action-y than horror-y, but they still probably have little horror elements into them. But by far, it dives deep into horror. It's really quite eerie and unsettling and pretty gross too in places, so immaculate. The vibes are great. And the setting is just so good too, the sort of abandoned sort of swamp house and stuff, the sort of swamp manor and everything. Really creepy stuff. But it also has elements of classic Resident Evil too. You get the same sort of inventory system. You have to manage your inventory. You can't kill everything that you see, just like the classic ones, more survival horror. It definitely dips into more action-based stuff once it gets to the last act, just like other ones like 2 and 3. And even the keys from 2 also make a return. You get these doors you can only unlock with certain keys, and in 7 you also get that too. You get these, like, you get the scorpion key or the snake key, the crow key. I thought that was sort of a cool callback to that sort of system. So very Resident Evil, very much a departure too in some regards, but I think it was amazing. Still has that humor, the sort of dark humor that Resident Evil has throughout, so 7 was amazing too. I think my ranking would probably be either 4 at the top for sure, and then either 2 or 7, and then whichever one after that. Right now I'd probably say 7 then 2, but that could change in a heartbeat. And then 3 at the end, but I think it's still great. This makes me want to play more Resident Evil, and I think next year I'll probably be playing some more too. I'd have to play 5 and 6, go back to 1 if I can. I tried to play 1 before my PlayStation crashed and exploded. Didn't really explode, but it basically may as well have exploded. It's quite hard. It's probably the hardest Resident Evil game because you gotta figure out what you're doing, and it does not give you anything whatsoever. It's like, yeah, go do this, and you're like, how? You're like, if the game's like, I don't know, man, you figure it out. So, quite challenging. But anyways, glad that I played the Resident Evil games, had a great time with those, excited for more, can't wait for the next remake, and also, of course, 9, very excited for that. I've got to play Village as well, we'll definitely hit that next year too. Next up, I actually played this in between Resident Evil 4 and Resident Evil 2, because I went 4, 2, 3, 7, but maybe I could have planned that a little better, but it's okay. Next up, another horror game, Alan Wake 2. So I've been a fan of Alan Wake for a while. I played the first game way back in the day. The thing was, it was going to go off Steam for a while. There's some sort of licensing issue or something, so they had to remove it from Steam. So they put it on sale, and I was like, I gotta get this. I bought it, played it. It's pretty good. I'd say it's probably like a 7 or 8 out of 10. I don't think it's perfect, and I think it's dated, but it still is a fun time, and I like it. It's very quirky and fun and weird, and still like very horror-y and stuff too, so it's a great time. I enjoy it, but this one blows it out of the water like 10 times over. 2 is crazy good, man. It's really just, there's so much to talk about and just so little time to talk about it. For one, it's just a great looking game too. I think it's probably like one of the best looking games that I've played this year as well. I think Resident Evil 4 and Alan Wake 2 are probably the best looking games, not including Grease. I think Grease also counts too, but that's sort of not trying to be more realistic, but these other 2 games are trying to be more realistic and stuff, so there's that. More grounded in that aspect, not sort of artsy-fartsy, but more like grounded realism, I suppose, in a sense. But yeah. But Alan Wake 2 sort of picks off where the first one ended, and sort of explores the mystery of Alan Wake through another character, Saga Anderson, and her story too. So you get to sort of bounce back between what's going on with Alan and what's going on with Saga, and sort of this loop that eventually comes together in a great climactic finale. Asks so many questions, doesn't give you as many answers. Really compelling story, very horror-y too. There's some elements that I thought were just really creepy. There's like a specific part, the hotel section in the game is quite terrifying. Definitely one of the creepiest moments that I've played in a game recently, excluding Resident Evil 7. But until then, it was definitely like the creepiest game that I played all year. It's a great sort of mystery. If you like Twin Peaks, it sort of has that kind of vibe to it too. It takes place in sort of like a, I don't know exactly where it takes place, but sort of like a Washington type place, sort of, you know, out west and everything, you know, northwest sort of stuff. So it's just like really just well made, and the action is fun too. I think it definitely vastly improves over what was done in the first game as far as mechanics. Still has some of the similar mechanics where you have to get rid of the shadows from the zombie infected guys, and then you got to shoot them. But I think it does that much better, and I think the combat is much more satisfying than the first one. And just a really amazing sequel that just almost came out of nowhere and really caught the world by surprise. And has some of the most, like, probably most memorable moments I've ever played in a game. If you've not seen the musical element, you should probably wait and just play the game, because it's a fun surprise. It's probably one of my favorite moments of, like, any game that I've played in a while. It's a really great game. Amazing. If you like I said, not only just Twin Peaks, but it sort of has a Last of Us vibe to it too. Not in the same extent where it's like, oh, it's just The Last of Us, but sort of some of the vibes, sort of the gameplay of it is a little Last of Us-y. No crafting really, but yeah, it sort of has that kind of feel a little bit to it, and maybe a little Resident Evil flavor to it too. But Alan Wake 2 deserves so much love. It's amazing. And now we're gonna end off with the last game. The last game that I played this year is Resident Evil 7 before my console kind of destroyed itself. But before that, before Resident Evil 2 and 3, I played, I jumped on the bandwagon. I started watching Fallout, the series. Oh! It's so good. One of the best video game adaptations I've seen. Perfectly understands the world, does a lot of unique things to it, adds to the lore. Doesn't sort of really, like, try to, like, make its own, like, it makes its own lore, but doesn't really try to, like, backpedal and sort of try to change what's already established, but sort of works with what's already there, which I think is great, and really just got me interested in the game series. I played a little bit of 3 and New Vegas and stuff. It never really, like, hooked me. I thought it was great, and I enjoyed them, and I could see why people liked them. They weren't really games that I sort of, like, are in my wheelhouse, honestly. I don't really play games like that, so these grand, large RPG games. But, Fallout really got me interested in Fallout 4. I wanted to play, like, a Fallout game, so it didn't really matter which one I played. I was like, okay, Fallout 4 is the most readily available. There's, like, you know, you can play the other games on Steam and whatever and stuff too, and you know, I'm sure Game Pass or whatever and stuff has some of that stuff. But yeah, no, it it was the one that I had to hit. So I did, and I did not regret it. I think Fallout 4 is great. Maybe it's not as good as Free or New Vegas especially, but I think nevertheless it is quite the fun game, and I'm glad that it was my sort of larger introduction to the world of Fallout outside of the TV series. A lot of fun mechanics, a lot of cool storylines. You can just spend hours and hours and hours in that game and only see, you know, just a few things. I spent quite a bit of time on it. I played through the main storyline mostly, but I did a few side quests and everything, so I didn't necessarily play it as non-linear as other people have, but I stuck to the story mostly. But yeah, so I can't speak to, like, you know, there's so many hours I can sink into that game that I still wouldn't, like I said, see everything. So I can't speak to the entire game as like a massive, like, you know, expert on the game. But there's just so much fun to be had that I really just thoroughly enjoyed it and stuff. It's really fun. Very Bethesda-y, which could be to its benefit or to its sort of hindrance. But I think it's mostly to its benefit. And yeah, it is just such a fun game. A lot of fun characters too. I like Nick Valentine and stuff, and Piper is pretty cool. There's DLCs I've never played before, but those look fun. And I really enjoyed the story, this sort of, you know, this personal story of a person looking for their son in the wasteland and sort of seeing what has happened to their son and everything. So it's a cool story. I enjoyed it. I think it was quite well told throughout. So yeah, sort of a mystery and trying to find this person and everything, and then sort of what happens after that, and sort of the things, the messages that it has and everything, and the multiple endings and stuff like that, different paths. You know, RPGs are very sort of personal experiences. You get to experience and get to shape the story the way that you want to. Mostly you get to decide which path to go down and who to trust and who not to trust, who to betray. So yeah, Fallout 4 was quite fun. I'm glad that I played it, and I will definitely check out more of the Fallout games in the future. I'd love to give New Vegas another try and play some other stuff from that series. So thank you for watching. This is my long rambling rambles about the games I've played this year. It's been a fun year. Really enjoyed all of these games. I was glad to finally play more games. It had been a while since I played a lot of games like this, so it was refreshing. Didn't just play the games for other people, but for myself too. I of course have fun playing, you know, games for all of you and everything, but sometimes it's nice just to sort of sit back, relax, and crack open a nice game. So I will see you all next year. I'll be doing this again. I'll keep on playing some more games. We'll have to play more Resident Evil. I'll have to play Village. I'd love to play, I do have Red Dead Redemption 2. I haven't played much of it. I've played like 4 hours of it. I'd love to pick that back up and go for it. I really enjoyed what I played, so I love Rockstar as well. Obviously GTA 6 is coming out next year too. I'm gonna sink so much time into that. I'm playing GTA 5 a lot, but once 6 comes out, I'm sorry, it's gonna be uninstalled. It's 6 time, baby. Anyways, I will see you all very soon.